So, when I first found out that I was going to be speaking here at TEDx, I was beyond excited. I mean, I was like literally jumping up and down in the room and then just like running from room to room. Ted! Ted! My fiance, who's used to me and the joy thing, even he was a bit taken aback. You know how a car can overheat? I might have overjoyed. And then reality began to set in. Oh crap, I gotta be Brene Brown. I mean, for me, there's no in between. This talk has to change your life. No pressure. I don't know if you've ever put that kind of pressure on yourself to change the world, but I can tell you this, that kind of pressure kind of makes it impossible to do anything. Or if you do something, to not keep wondering why the genius of Brene hasn't shown up yet. So now this whole thing has sent me into a tailspin, and I spent the next month crying, asking myself repeatedly, why do you keep putting yourself in these situations? On this one not so particularly good day, my not so particularly lucky speaking coach received a not so particularly stable message from me. How am I possibly going to talk about joy and be America's joy magnet while I'm sitting here crying? Thankfully, he did not get back to me right away, so I could hide. Truthfully, it just gave me some time to pause and to reflect. And I was reminded of what I have come to learn after 2 decades of taking a deep dive within, and over a decade of helping others take that same inward journey. And that is that joy is experienced when we are fully connected to ourselves, our real selves, our sometimes not so pretty selves, our truth. Joy isn't only reserved for the color yellow, or watching children play, or fields of sunflowers, or even goat yoga. Joy can exist simultaneously with other emotions, like sadness and fear and anger, embarrassment, and even in freakouts and deluded fantasies of being Brene Brown. Joy is ignited in the connection and acceptance of it all, the breakthroughs and the breakdowns. Psychologist and Harvard Connection researcher Christine Klussman says that the payoff of self-connection is the sense of feeling truly and exquisitely alive, fully engaged in the life you lead and welcoming every moment. Your mind soars, your body sings, and you inhabit a world of the most profound and lasting satisfaction. I don't know about you, but that sounds a lot like joy to me. But before we get into what has completely changed my life and the lives of many others, I do want to first point out that joy is different than happiness. And it's important for us to note this because in our pursuit of happiness, which, by the way, I don't know if anyone's noticed, we've been pursuing this like for a really long time, like at least since the Declaration of Independence, just saying. But in our pursuit of this, I believe that we've not only overlooked joy, but according to psychology research, we've actually become unhappier, which I'm going to get into in just a second. But first, let's talk about a couple of the differences between the two. So when it comes to happiness, there's usually an external catalyst for it. And this catalyst often rides shotgun with the game, I'll be happy when. Has anybody played this before? I'll be happy when I lose 10 pounds. I'll be happy when I make more money. I'll be happy when I get that new car, the corner office, the relationship. The more and more that we seek happy out there, the further and further we move away from in here. With joy, you don't have to look outside of yourself to find it. It can be felt by leaning in. So then you might be asking yourself, all right, Shari, well, if joy is so accessible and available to all of us, why are there so many people struggling? Because you and I have been taught that uncomfortable feelings are bad. Happy is good. And so from the moment we start to feel a little bit of discomfort, some hurt or pain starts to rise, we hightail it out of there. And then we start to look for things to distract us from those bad feelings, to make us happy or numb the unhappy. Binge watching Netflix series, shopping, overworking, overeating, not eating, drinking drugs, surfing the internet, scrolling news feeds, you get the point. And here's the kicker. Being happy all the time is impossible. So then we start to feel badly about that. We find ourselves back in the discomfort and starting the entire cycle all over again. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm not throwing shade on happiness. I love happy. But it's the power that we give to it. We sacrifice our own health at times in order to achieve this happy. But happiness and joy each serve their own purpose. Imagine life as a dinner table. Happiness is what is being served to you on the table. Joy is what you bring to the table. Now, joy wasn't something that I was looking to find. It snuck up on me. I was too busy in my 20s and early 30s just trying to outrun my pain. I completely overlooked joy. I was also chasing what I thought would make me happy or numb my unhappy. And for me, that looked a lot like amaretto sours, Whoppers, and busboys. What? Oh yeah, I couldn't choose just one. I'm an overachiever. I had a full-time job at denying, suppressing, and avoiding my feelings. And this is what avoiding my feelings look like. So why are we so afraid to go within? Because we avoid spaces that hurt. When you've put your hand on a hot stove, it's not something you're dying to try again. And most of us at one point in our lives, usually when we're most vulnerable, we've been hurt. We've been betrayed, we've been let down, and so we've learned to shut down, to close off, and to build walls. But not just to keep others out, also ourselves. So many who are struggling right now with depression and anxiety and loneliness have built fortresses around their hearts. And of course, we don't know we're doing this. But after some time, we start to sense that there's something missing, right? There's some sort of disconnect in our lives. And so, what do? We go seeking connection. But we do it out there, in relationships, in career, achievements, accomplishments, only to fill that longing temporarily. We usually don't go knocking on the inside door until we're forced to. Me, I would just take peeks inside, check out the view. But as soon as things got a little too close for discomfort, I ran for the hills. And then I would start looking for all of these things to fill me. Did you know that they did a study and they found that one of the main reasons why people finally go within is when we either lose something or someone, or we come close to it. So illness, death of a loved one, a near-death experience, heartbreak, job loss, freedom, cue pandemic. It's when something cracks us open so deeply that we either fall into the abyss and we stay there, or else we turn our flashlights on and we begin exploring our inner world. It wasn't until I was emotionally exhausted that I finally began to explore the landscape. So fast forward a few years, and I find myself in Italy by myself for the summer, trying to mend a broken heart. I figured, what better place to spend some time alone than in the quiet countryside of Tuscany, where I didn't speak the language, so I couldn't talk to anyone. I didn't know anyone, although I made very good friends with vino and espresso. But really, I could just spend some time with me, really learning how to love me. One small snack. It's really hard to love someone that you really don't know. When I was 7 years old, I found myself on a witness stand, seated across from and speaking out against the man who had sexually abused me. And it was all too much, An experience and a moment in time that I did not want to stay connected to. And so I didn't. I disconnected, and I walked away from that little girl. And then I spent years trying to understand why it was that I felt like something was missing. Why did I feel unwhole? And then I went looking for all of these missing pieces in people and in things, only to come up empty-handed. So it comes as no surprise that when I ended up in Italy to heal myself, I first had to meet myself. It's so interesting, the things that you find out about yourself when you go somewhere where nobody knows you. Nobody's expecting like the shy guy or the happy girl or the jokester to walk through those doors. You get to just show up. I actually discovered that I was a lot quieter and shyer than I thought. And yes, I know, those who know me right now are completely rolling their eyes. Throughout that entire summer, all of the beliefs that I had about myself and about the world and about others were put under this microscope. I had a lot of time on my hands. Nowhere to run, only right here to be. And as I started to strip away all of these old ideas and these stories and the beliefs, the lighter I became. And in this lightness, I started to find out more of who I was. And the more that I found out, the more I kind of liked who I met. On one of my last days there, I was visiting my favorite church in Florence, San Miniato al Monte, which, by the way, I discovered I love churches, and I'm Jewish, so who knew? But I used to love to get there like really early before anyone else because it was so quiet, so I'd be able to hear my footsteps creaking on the old floors. And the sun would first be peeking through the stained glass window in the back of the church. And at times, if I listened closely enough, I swear those old church walls would speak to me. On this particular day, though, it wasn't the church. As I was standing there with my eyes closed and just feeling the warmth of the sun just bathing me in its light, I heard the words very clearly. You weren't supposed to leave her. You were supposed to love her. It was as if I had just been socked in the stomach with the truth. I wasn't supposed to leave her that day on the witness stand, or any of the other times she tried to get my attention. I was supposed to stay with her and listen to her and love her. And that is when the reconnection back to my whole self and my journey to joy began. The Center for the Advancement of Well-Being did this study on joy, and they found that joy is experienced in the reconnection to someone or something important. I was that someone important. You are that someone important. So what would the world look like if we spent more time connecting to ourselves instead of running from ourselves? What would it look like if we weren't at war with ourselves? What would it feel like if we accepted and loved who we met? There's only one way I know. Get to know yourself. Self-connection looks like being brave enough to sit with your feelings. It looks like watching one less Netflix episode. It looks like going on a walk without your phone. It looks like building bridges and not fortresses. And it looks like staying in that tough moment just one moment longer. And as you travel down this path of self-connection on the yellow brick road to joy, you are going to have a chance to meet self-compassion and self-acceptance. And they'll be the ones that look like patience and kindness with yourself, non-judgment of yourself, reminding you that you are doing the best that you can. Welcome them. One last thing before I go. There's this misconception that as America's joy magnet, that I just pop up out of bed every morning and exclaim, "Woo! Welcome to today!" Yeah, luckily for my fiance, that's not true. Joy has a way of sneaking up on me still, like in the middle of a breakdown, with a gentle reminder of my enoughness when I think that I'm not doing or being enough. Some days, though, joy does. I mean, it comes swooping in, and it looks like me standing on a train to Lake Como with my head out the window and arms flailing in the sky and screaming at the top of my lungs. Other days, joy floats gently in, and it looks like me with my arms wrapped around myself, reminding me that I am okay. Can I get you guys to try something with me? Go ahead and put your dominant arm in the air. And I want you to take it and wrap it right underneath your other arm. Then take your leftover arm. If you're an octopus, choose one. Ba-dum-bum. And you're going to place that right on your shoulder. And you could lay your head gently on your hand. And if it feels good to close your eyes, you could do that if you don't want anyone looking at you. And then just squeeze. You could squeal too. Joy is found right there, right here, every time that you connect and come home to you. Thank you.